everybody, and welcome to this vlog for the Hunter Call of the Wild. Today we're here with game designer Björn.
Hello, and welcome. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem.
And Björn is gonna talk us through his very interesting work of designing weapons and game mechanics. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Björn. I'm senior game designer on Call of the Wild. And I've been involved with a lot of the gameplay systems in the game, including weapons and progression system, and yeah, more or less all the core gameplay systems.
Okay, so not just purely the design of of items, but also the design of game mechanics.
Yeah. I started already working when the project was in the concept phase.
Yeah.
So I developed the concept, and I've been working on various features since then.
Okay.
It's really cool. So I'm wondering, so when you started to feel like you wanted to go into game design and the game industry, do you remember where the point was when you decided that this is what I really want to do?
Yeah, it was really early. So during my childhood, when I first came across games, I started immediately trying to make games, painting levels in Paint and trying to learn programming and things like that. But then I sort of hit the wall with all the math of programming, so I decided to become a game designer instead, because I thought that there would be less math, but that was of course not true.
So would you say that it involves a lot of mathematical skills to work as a game designer in general?
Yeah, especially if you're working with the systems and tweaking and that kind of stuff, which is what I've ended up doing mostly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So after you have entered the game, or after you had entered the games industry, what projects did you work on in the past, other than the Hunter Call of the Wild? So what was before that?
Yeah, so I started right after college with starting my own company with some friends, and we produced a few indie titles. That got published on Steam and Xbox Live Arcade.
Nice.
We didn't make that much money though, but I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, and so you were so this is where you started out basically, and did you transition from an indie studio into Avalanche?
Yeah, directly from the indie studio to Expansive Worlds, and Avalanche, of course, that owns Expansive Worlds. So I started on the Hunter team when it was first forming.
Wow. Okay.
When Avalanche took it over from Emote. So I've been working on all the Hunter games.
Wow, that sounds like you have been in the company for a pretty long time.
Yeah, it's about 6 years now.
6 years, okay.
That's impressive.
Yeah, for the games industry, that's a pretty long time.
Yeah.
I know who to call when I'm wondering, like, is this weapon okay to shoot red deer?
I should know. I know a lot about all of the games and hunting and stuff.
That sounds good. What would you say is the biggest challenge when you want to make a good weapon?
Yeah, there are 3 things you need to achieve. One is the feel of the weapon, how it handles, reloading, sounds, animations, all that. And that's very complex because it involves a lot of people. But then we have the mechanics, the ballistics, and what happens when the projectile hits the animal. And that's where I've been working mostly. It's also one of the most complex math problems in the game, because we actually use realistic physics for all that. Yeah.
Would you say that that's something that's pretty original for the Hunter in general, to have a more realistic?
Yeah, definitely.
touch?
Hunting games are a lot more complex when it comes to the weapons than a regular shooter, because you need to simulate the internal organs and all that, which is really complex.
Talking about the weapons, so from the moment when somebody has the idea, hey, we should put weapon XYZ into the game, until that becomes a playable weapon in the game. So can you tell us a bit more about the process that a weapon would go through from the initial idea until it is playable?
Yeah, so first you need to research, and that's the designer's job, and make a design for it. But then you have a lot of different people working. You have the artist making the model, animators making it move, And then you have programmers, loads of programmers to make all the systems, the ballistics and the handling and all that, which is also really complex. And then in the end, the designer comes back and do the final tweak to get the feel of it.
Okay, and that involves everything, not just the graphical design, but also, let's say, the damage model and so on and so forth.
I would mostly work on the damage and the feel and that kind of stuff, whereas the artists are pretty free to work on how it looks and stuff like that.
What would you say, how many people would be involved in the process of creating one single weapon?
If you count the systems, also making the systems, there would probably be 6 people maybe, or something like that, maybe more. But once you have the systems in place, it's maybe only 4 people.
4 people, okay.
So the Hunter Colored Oil is a really big project, and I'm wondering, what would you say is the biggest challenge for you personally, and also the biggest reward for this project?
Yeah, the size of the projects is probably the biggest challenge. With the Hunter, we had 1 or 2 designers working on new content. Now we had, I think, 5 or something, because it's impossible to do all the work. We have so many systems that need to work together. So working on separate systems and then making them work together is probably the hardest part. But it's also the most rewarding, because once everything clicks, then it's much greater than anything that one person could have done.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, especially I imagine if you're working with so many people in like across teams and possibly even across different countries, that's a pretty difficult task to fulfill.
Yeah, the bigger the team, the more complex it is to coordinate everything.
So, and as the last question is, if you work in the games industry, obviously, if you release a game, that's always like your little baby kind of thing that you leave into the world. That's always a huge event. So, do you have anything planned for the release? Like, are you going out with your team, or you just?
Usually, the HR department will create some sort of event when we release a game. So the team hasn't planned anything as far as I know, but there will probably be something.
Yeah.
But the thing that I'm most excited about is getting the reaction from the community.
Yeah, so you will be lurking around on the Steam boards.
Yeah, probably. I think most of
reading
us
comments, seeing what do people think about the designs and the models and so on.
Yeah, I think most of the team will probably be reading the forums when we release it.
So thank you very much for joining us today. That was episode 1 of the vlog, and we'll be seeing all of you in a bit. So happy hunting.
Happy hunting.